Change doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It begins the second you decide to rise. Welcome to Premium Audiobooks, where transformation meets action and every word fuels your next breakthrough. I'm Jessica, your guide through how to reinvent yourself in just 21 days. A powerful journey across 10 life-changing chapters that rebuild mindset, habits, confidence, and purpose. Each chapter is crafted to reshape who you are and lead you toward the best version of yourself. Subscribe now to Premium Audiobooks for more inspiring, high-value content that elevates your growth, sharpens your discipline, and awakens the power already within you. Number 1. Break habits. Build purpose. Start anew. Break a habit, and something in the room shifts. The sunlight seems sharper, air tastes a little cleaner, and the space that habit used to occupy opens like a small door. Habit is heavy because it is familiar. Purpose is light because it points forward. To begin again, the first required act is simple and stubborn. Interrupt the automatic. This chapter shows how to interrupt, replace, and anchor new patterns with purpose. So the first step toward reinvention feels both practical and sacred. Habits form because the brain conserves energy. A repeated cue triggers an unconscious routine, and a reward cements it. Understanding that circuit, the cue, the routine, the reward, turns what feels like fate into an engineerable mechanism. The moment that matters most is the space between cue and routine. If that space widens by a breath, a choice appears. When choice appears, agency returns. Start by mapping one habit you want to break. Choose one, not three, not an entire personality overhaul. One. Describe it in exact terms. Where it starts, how it feels, what happens after. Instead of "I scroll too much," write, "When I sit down on the couch, after dinner, I pick up my phone and scroll for 45 minutes, until I feel tired and guilty." Specificity is fuel. The sensory detail, the couch's fabric, the light from the TV, the warmth of a mug, anchors the cue. When the cue is known, it can be redesigned. Next, examine the reward honestly. The brain always seeks something: novelty, distraction, a mood lift, avoidance of complexity. If the reward is distraction from stress, then offer a different, immediate reward that satisfies the same need without handing control away. If scrolling soothes anxiety, a 90-second breathing practice gives relief and returns presence. If snacking fills an empty hour, a brisk 5-minute walk offers movement and a reset. The substitute must be accessible and clearly connected to the original need. Otherwise, the old habit creeps back in overnight. Practical method. Implementation intention. This is the mental pre-commitment that turns intention into action. Instead of vague goals, stop snacking. Use an if-then plan. If I sit on the couch after dinner, then I will set a 10-minute timer and write 3 sentences in my notebook. Repeat this mentally and write it down. The brain prefers instructions. It obeys what is rehearsed. Test the plan like a scientist. Fail. Adjust. Fail again. Each failure teaches more than blind success, because it points precisely to where friction lives. Change the environment before changing the will. Willpower is finite. Environment endures. Make the cue harder to notice, and the new behavior easier to begin. Move the phone to another room. Keep the snack bowl in a cupboard. Place a notebook and pen on the coffee table. Create friction for the old habit, and remove friction for the new one. When the physical world nudges toward the desired behavior, the inner voice stops carrying the load alone. Use microactions to build momentum. A microaction is a gesture so small resistance cannot find purchase. 1 push-up, 1 paragraph written, 1 minute of breath awareness. These tiny acts are deceptively powerful because they shift identity. Completing 1 push-up does not make someone an athlete, but it signals to the brain, this is the kind of person who moves. Identity change is the deep lever of lasting transformation. Keep the microactions visible, habit streaks. A simple mark on a calendar, a short list in the morning, so the brain receives immediate feedback and reward. A daily ritual anchors purpose. Rituals are compressed, repeatable containers that hold attention and devotion. They need not be elaborate. A morning ritual may be: wake, drink water, stand at the window for 60 seconds, and breathe. Write one sentence that captures intention for the day. That small sequence ties body, breath, and mind together and creates a signal that this day will be governed by purpose, not reaction. Rituals convert scattered energy into coherent direction. Write purpose as a short sentence, not a manifesto. Purpose must be actionable and present tense. I choose steady growth through small, consistent acts. Put this sentence where it will be seen: on the bathroom mirror, as the lock screen on the phone, or on a note in a wallet. The repetition calibrates behavior. Read it aloud in the morning and at night. The voice behind the words is not boastful. It is steady and demanding, like a coach who expects attendance. Discipline is not punishment. It is training of attention. Use Stoic practice to frame discipline as freedom. The core Stoic insight: control what is yours, applies directly to habits. External events will still happen, but the choice of response remains. When irritation, boredom, or fatigue surfaces, practice naming the feeling without surrendering to it. The simple internal phrase, "This is feeling, not order," creates distance and prevents immediate surrender to old routines that seek to soothe. Negative visualization, briefly imagining loss or delay, sharpens gratitude, making the present moment feel like something to protect rather than something to escape. Accountability increases the odds of change. Share the specific habit change with one person and ask for a simple check-in, a text at day's end, a weekly call, or a single shared marker like a photograph journal page. Commit to an experiment, 14 days of the new microaction, with one honest report at the end. Accountability need not be public parade. It must be precise. Human attention multiplies commitment. Record the inner weather daily. A 2-minute evening note on what worked, what did not, and how energy felt creates a living data set of the self. Over 6 nights, patterns appear. Certain contexts trigger old routines. Certain moods erode will. Certain early actions protect the rest of the day. Use this data to adjust environment, timing, and strategy. Small course corrections beat grand redesigns every time. Practice habit substitution with ritualized transition. Many habits land on the tail of another action. Finishing dinner, coming home, waking up. Insert a transition ritual between the two. After dinner, stand, wash one dish, and then sit to read for 10 minutes. The washing motion shifts the body and signals closure. The reading fills the reward space that scrolling used to occupy. The ritual need not be glamorous. Its power lies in the repeated punctuation it offers to the day. Reinvention is not denial of past self. It is recalibration. Release does not mean erasing memory. Acknowledge why the old habit protected or comforted you. Express gratitude for what it offered. In that moment of gratitude, choose a new protector: courage, clarity, or presence. The emotional landscape shifts when the old behavior is met with compassion rather than condemnation. This reduces resistance and creates space for genuine change. Measure progress by process, not by immediate outcome. Instead of tracking weight lost or money saved, track repetitions of the micro-action and days of ritual completion. The tally becomes a sacred ledger. Celebrate streaks, modestly, an extra 5 minutes of reading or a favorite tea, then return to the work. Celebration is not indulgence, it is reinforcement. Ritualize small rewards that are aligned with the new identity. Use sensory anchors to make new habits memorable. Sound, touch, and smell are fast pathways into behavior. A brief chime on the phone can be a cue to breathe. A textured bracelet on the wrist can serve as a reminder to stand and stretch. A particular tea can mark the end of the workday and the start of rest. These anchors make the transition pleasant and automatic over time. Prepare for failure as if it is inevitable, because it will come. When it does, respond with a short, structured reset. Name the trigger, note the immediate sensation, write one compact observation, and perform one micro-action that restores alignment. Avoid moralizing the slip. Stoic discipline insists on prompt correction, without drama. The quicker the reset, the less the slip will consolidate into a pattern. Finally, begin the day with a question that guides action. What one small act today will prove the new identity? Make that act unavoidably small. The day will be carried by that single decision. When the sun tilts late and the body tires, that small decision will have done its quiet work, stitching new pattern into the fabric of daily life. Reinvention in 21 days is not a dramatic, overnight metamorphosis. It is a concentrated experiment in unlearning automatic responses and replacing them with chosen behaviors that align with purpose. Break one habit, not the whole self. Design a ritual that binds the day to intention. Use implementation intentions and environment design to take the burden off willpower. Track daily with simple notes, reward small wins, and prepare for failures with a practiced reset. The stoic heart of this approach is discipline exercised gently and repeatedly. A patient insistence on small acts until the old door closes and a new one opens. At the end of 3 weeks, the shaped behaviors will still be soft around the edges, but their outline will be unmistakable. The mornings will start differently. The evenings will hold a quieter tone, and the inner voice will speak with a new cadence, less reactive, more deliberate. The world will not have changed, but the position one takes within it will have. That is the essential alchemy of reinvention, not escape from life, but a fuller engagement with it under the governance of chosen purpose. Number 2. Redefine mindset. Master daily transformation. Mindset is the quiet architect of every outcome. It is the unseen hand shaping perception, decision, and destiny. To redefine mindset is to rebuild the lens through which reality is interpreted. Nothing changes externally until the internal narrative transforms. Every person lives within the story they tell themselves each day, and mastery of daily transformation begins when that story becomes intentional instead of inherited. The task is not to manufacture positivity, but to cultivate clarity, resilience, and adaptability. Mindset is not a mood. It is a disciplined framework for responding to life. Transformation begins with awareness. Observe the constant chatter of thoughts that drift through the mind during ordinary moments, while walking, waiting, or washing dishes. Much of this mental noise is unexamined repetition, judgments, fears, and expectations gathered from years of conditioning. Notice the tone of those thoughts. Is it encouraging or cynical, hopeful or resigned? The mind, left untrained, becomes a recycling system for past disappointments. By observing without judgment, a small distance forms between the thinker and the thought. That distance is freedom. Within it lies the first doorway to a redefined mindset. A redefined mindset begins with responsibility. Every reaction, emotion, and interpretation belongs to the self. The outer world may provoke, but it does not decide. The person who waits for circumstances to change before feeling peace will never be free. Responsibility means reclaiming the authorship of experience. When anger arises, the practice is to pause and name it. When fear appears, examine what it protects. When envy surfaces, trace it to an unmet desire. These reflections replace blind reaction with conscious inquiry. Each time responsibility is claimed, the mind strengthens its authority over chaos. Practical transformation happens through consistent mental training. Begin the day by selecting one central attitude, a deliberate mental posture for the next 24 hours. It might be patience, curiosity, or composure. Hold that single quality in mind as a guiding principle. Throughout the day, test it in ordinary situations: traffic, conversation, work pressure. Each encounter becomes a small laboratory for practicing that chosen quality. The purpose is not perfection, but repetition. Just as muscles respond to daily exercise, mindset adapts through deliberate rehearsal of chosen states. Reframing is another instrument of transformation. Every event carries multiple interpretations. The one selected determines emotional direction. A setback can mean defeat or instruction. A delay can mean failure or preparation. The disciplined mind looks for constructive framing without denial of truth. When an obstacle appears, ask, "What is this teaching?" This question shifts the focus from complaint to curiosity, turning frustration into a resource for growth. Over time, reframing becomes instinctive, and emotional recovery accelerates. Language shapes thought, and thought shapes life. Pay attention to words used in self-talk and conversation. Language reveals hidden beliefs. Phrases like, "I always fail," or "I can't handle this," reinforce mental patterns of limitation. Replace them with precise, reality-based statements. I failed at this attempt, but I can learn. Or this challenge requires new skill. The mind listens to its own words, and language becomes a quiet architect of belief. Consistent correction of inner speech gradually rewires expectation, and expectation influences behavior. Mindset redefinition also requires exposure to new ideas and people who embody the qualities desired. Isolation strengthens old patterns. Read works that challenge assumptions. Spend time with those who practice calm under stress, and observe how they interpret adversity. Learning by osmosis accelerates internal evolution. Surrounding oneself with growth-oriented influences creates an invisible mentorship that supports transformation even when motivation fades. Daily transformation is anchored in reflection. At the end of each day, review not the external events, but the internal responses. Ask 3 questions. What did I handle with awareness? Where did I react unconsciously? What lesson can I carry into tomorrow? Write short notes, not essays. The goal is not performance, but pattern recognition. Over a week, the journal reveals recurring themes. The situations that provoke, the emotions that dominate, the progress quietly unfolding. Awareness accumulated through reflection becomes the foundation for deliberate improvement. Emotional mastery is part of mental mastery. Emotions are signals, not enemies. A redefined mindset learns to interpret emotion as data rather than dictate. When anxiety arises, it signals uncertainty and the need for preparation. When sadness appears, it highlights attachment to something valued. When anger burns, it points to boundaries crossed or expectations unmet. Instead of suppressing emotion or drowning in it, translate it into information. This translation turns emotional energy into intelligence. Another essential practice is mental fasting. Deliberate breaks from consumption. The modern mind is overstimulated by endless information, leaving no silence for integration. Choose intervals each day to withdraw from screens, noise, and conversation. Use that time to breathe, walk, or simply be still. In silence, thought slows enough to reveal what truly matters. Clarity emerges not from addition, but from subtraction. The redefined mindset values stillness as a generator of strength. Comparison is one of the greatest thieves of transformation. When energy is spent measuring worth against others, attention is diverted from personal evolution. Redefine success as progress, not position. The individual path has its own rhythm and timing. Comparing journeys blinds the mind to the quiet evidence of growth occurring in small steps. Focus on direction, not distance. Celebrate improvement in awareness, patience, or consistency, even when external results are invisible. Progress is cumulative and often subtle. Adversity becomes the proving ground of mindset. When plans collapse or uncertainty dominates, the old mind seeks escape, while the redefined mind seeks endurance. Every storm tests the structural integrity of perspective. Ask during hardship, what strength is being built here? Even discomfort contains utility when examined through disciplined curiosity. This approach does not romanticize suffering, but uses it as a training ground for resilience. Over time, the mind becomes less fragile, more flexible, and less dependent on external validation. Gratitude functions as mental calibration. It trains attention to notice abundance rather than absence. Begin each morning with the naming of 3 simple things that bring stability or joy: clean water, a working body, a kind word. Gratitude is not sentimentality. It is orientation. By focusing on what remains, the mind develops resistance to despair. This practice grounds perspective, especially during uncertain times, and fosters a calm determination that fuels daily transformation. Continuous learning sustains an adaptive mindset. Dedicate short periods each day to study something new, a concept, a skill, a story outside one's profession. Learning keeps curiosity alive and prevents stagnation. The process of stretching the intellect creates humility, reminding the mind that growth never ends. This humility protects against arrogance, one of the hidden enemies of reinvention. Visualization amplifies change. Close the eyes and imagine responding to challenges with composure and strength. Picture the face relaxed, voice steady, movements deliberate. Visualization is rehearsal for behavior. The brain does not distinguish clearly between imagined and actual performance. By visualizing calmness and competence daily, the nervous system begins to embody those qualities in real situations. Consistency turns mental imagery into habitual response. Forgiveness clears mental space. Holding resentment anchors the mind to old injuries, draining energy that could power transformation. Forgiveness does not excuse harm. It releases bondage to it. When resentment appears, recall that the true cost of anger is internal peace. Releasing it is an act of strategic self-preservation. The redefined mindset values freedom over vindication, peace over narrative dominance. Purpose gives transformation direction. Without a sense of why, even disciplined effort loses meaning. Purpose need not be grand. It can be a simple commitment to contribute positively to others, to create with integrity, or to live with compassion. Each morning, recall that purpose as the axis around which all action revolves. When distractions appear, return to that axis. It steadies the mind and simplifies decision-making. Patience is the quiet strength behind transformation. Mindset shifts slowly, layer by layer. Impatience often masks insecurity. The disciplined mind accepts gradual progress as the natural rhythm of mastery. Each day that effort continues, identity refines itself. Transformation is less about leaps and more about persistence. The stone is shaped not by one strike, but by thousands of gentle taps over time. By the close of each day, the redefined mindset has practiced awareness, chosen response, reframed experience, and recorded learning. The mind becomes less a restless critic and more a trusted ally. It stops sabotaging and begins to serve. Over weeks, subtle changes accumulate. Decisions become clearer, emotional recovery faster, reactions slower, gratitude deeper. The transformation is quiet, but profound, the kind that does not need announcement, because it radiates through behavior. Redefining mindset and mastering daily transformation is not a single act of inspiration, but a lifetime craft of attention, discipline, and renewal. Each day becomes an opportunity to test, adjust, and refine the internal lens through which life is seen. When the mind learns to interpret experience through strength, gratitude, and purpose, external circumstances lose their power to dictate peace. The result is a calm, capable, and enduring self, one that moves through the world not as a victim of change, but as the conscious author of it. Number 3. Declutter life. Design your ideal self. Clutter is not only a pile of objects, it is the visible expression of indecision, avoidance, and attachment. To declutter life is to reclaim authority over what occupies physical, mental, and emotional space. Everything you own, think, and feel either serves your evolution or obstructs it. The process of designing an ideal self begins with subtraction. Before building the life you desire, you must clear the residue of what no longer aligns with who you are becoming. Transformation starts when simplicity becomes an act of courage. The first step is to confront the physical environment. Look around and notice what surrounds you each day. Every object carries a story, a purchase made from impulse, a gift kept out of guilt, a possession held for a version of yourself that no longer exists. The physical world mirrors the inner world, and clutter silently drains focus. Begin by selecting one small area, perhaps a drawer, a desk, or a corner of a room. Handle each item and ask one precise question. Does this object support the person I am becoming? If it does, keep it. If it does not, release it with gratitude. This act is not about minimalism as a trend, but about alignment. Each object you keep should earn its place in your environment by serving your purpose or bringing genuine value. Decluttering is not limited to things. It extends to commitments. Many people carry schedules packed with obligations that no longer contribute to meaning. Examine your calendar as carefully as you would a closet. Identify activities that deplete energy, relationships that no longer grow, and habits that consume time without return. Subtraction creates room for depth. Replace scattered busyness with deliberate presence. You do not need to fill every hour. Spaciousness itself becomes fertile ground for creativity and clarity. A calendar filled with what truly matters becomes a reflection of a disciplined and self-directed life. Mental clutter is the most subtle yet most powerful barrier to transformation. It takes the form of unexamined beliefs, persistent worries, and looping internal dialogue. Begin to notice the recurring thoughts that dominate quiet moments. Write them down and examine them as if they belonged to someone else. Ask whether these thoughts are facts or assumptions, whether they serve growth or feed limitation. Many beliefs were absorbed unconsciously from culture, family, or past experiences. To design the ideal self, question these inherited scripts. Replace conclusions like "I'm not capable" with exploratory statements such as "I'm learning what capability looks like for me." The act of rewording thoughts loosens the grip of mental clutter and replaces stagnation with curiosity. Emotional clutter often hides behind politeness and distraction. It includes unresolved guilt, resentment, or unexpressed grief. These emotions linger like unfinished chapters, quietly influencing behavior. To release them, give them space to be acknowledged without judgment. Write unsent letters, speak aloud in solitude, or express through movement or art. The goal is not dramatization but closure. Forgiveness is the most efficient form of emotional decluttering. Forgiving others and oneself unties the invisible knots that keep energy trapped in the past. Freedom does not come from forgetting, but from understanding the lesson and allowing the emotional charge to dissolve. Decluttering also applies to digital life. Devices overflow with notifications, saved files, and endless streams of information. Each ping steals a fraction of attention, and attention is the currency of transformation. Turn off unnecessary alerts, unsubscribe from noise, and organize digital spaces as you would a sacred room. Curate what you consume. Every image, message, or article influences the mental environment. The goal is not disconnection, but discernment. When digital inputs align with purpose, they educate and inspire instead of distract. Designing the ideal self begins once the noise quiets. The blank space that remains after decluttering can feel uncomfortable at first, because it confronts you with yourself. That emptiness is potential. To design deliberately, imagine the kind of person whose life feels purposeful, composed, and alive. Picture how that person behaves when faced with difficulty, how they start their mornings, what values guide their decisions. Do not design from fantasy or comparison. Design from authenticity. Ask what qualities feel essential: integrity, focus, generosity, or calm, and structure daily life around the practice of embodying them. Each ideal quality must translate into specific behavior. If calmness is essential, design a morning ritual that invites stillness, perhaps quiet tea, journaling, or time outdoors. If integrity matters, identify areas where small dishonesty lingers, such as overpromising or neglecting commitments, and correct them immediately. Design is not imagination alone, it is architecture. Each deliberate choice becomes a building block of identity. The more consistently these behaviors are practiced, the more naturally they define character. An ideal self requires boundaries to protect what matters. Boundaries are not walls. They are the framework that keeps your time and energy directed toward growth. Practice saying no without explanation. Decline opportunities that do not align with your designed priorities. Every no creates room for a meaningful yes. Boundaries reveal self-respect and communicate to the world that your life has structure and intention. Without them, clutter quickly returns disguised as obligation. Simplicity enhances presence. When possessions, obligations, and thoughts are refined, the senses sharpen. Meals taste richer, conversations deepen, and ordinary moments regain their texture. The mind, no longer fractured by excess, begins to perceive detail and beauty in simplicity. This awareness turns daily living into meditation. The ideal self does not seek constant novelty, but finds fulfillment in depth and attention. A crucial aspect of designing yourself is aligning action with values. Write down 3 core principles that you wish to embody, and use them as a compass. Before decisions, ask if the choice honors those principles. This alignment eliminates hesitation because clarity replaces confusion. Consistency between values and behavior builds trust in oneself, and that trust becomes unshakable confidence. The ideal self is not constructed overnight, but refined through countless small decisions that honor integrity. Clarity thrives in structure. Establish systems that support the simplicity you have created. Store objects in designated places, schedule weekly reflections, and maintain routines that prevent clutter from reappearing. Systems remove the need for constant decision-making and preserve mental energy for creativity and problem-solving. Discipline in maintaining order is not rigidity but respect for the space you have reclaimed. A clean environment is a form of silent motivation, a reminder that your external world now mirrors your inner focus. Relationships deserve decluttering as much as possessions. Evaluate connections through the lens of reciprocity and honesty. Keep those that encourage mutual growth and compassion. Distance yourself from those that drain or manipulate. This does not require hostility. It requires clarity. Authenticity attracts alignment. When you release relationships built on guilt or convenience, you make room for those founded on respect and shared purpose. The ideal self flourishes in the company of others who challenge, support, and inspire. Decluttering extends to identity itself. Many people carry outdated self-definitions labels adopted in childhood, professions mistaken for personality, or stories repeated until they seem permanent. Examine the words you use to describe yourself. Replace "I am always anxious" with "I am learning calm." Replace "I'm not creative" with "I'm exploring expression." These linguistic shifts are not superficial. They are structural. They reshape how you perceive possibility. The ideal self is flexible, able to evolve as awareness expands. Creating your ideal life requires designing not only what you do but how you experience it. Build environments that evoke peace and focus. Choose colors, scents, and sounds that reinforce the emotional tone you wish to live in. Light a candle when working, play instrumental music during reflection, or open windows to invite air and sunlight. These sensory details communicate safety and clarity to the nervous system, turning your surroundings into a sanctuary rather than a storage space. To sustain this new order, schedule regular intervals of review. Once a month, scan your environment, habits, and relationships with the same question used at the beginning. Does this still serve who I am becoming? Growth will continually redefine what is necessary. Decluttering is not a one-time purge, but a continuous process of refinement. Life evolves, and the ideal self evolves with it. Freedom emerges as the ultimate reward. With less clutter, decisions simplify, energy strengthens, and direction sharpens. The mind no longer wanders through excess, but moves with precision. You begin to recognize that happiness was never hidden behind accumulation. It was obscured by it. The simplicity that remains is not emptiness, but clarity. The ideal self is not someone distant. It is who you become when distractions fall away and purpose takes form. Decluttering life and designing the ideal self is an act of conscious authorship. It replaces passivity with participation. It transforms chaos into clarity and replaces accumulation with intention. When the unnecessary is removed, what remains is essence focused, deliberate, alive. In this state, every action becomes purposeful, every moment meaningful, and every day a step toward the life you were always capable of living. Number 4. Unlock confidence through consistent micro-changes. Confidence is not a gift given at birth. It is a structure built quietly through repeated, deliberate actions that prove to the mind it can rely on itself. It is not arrogance or noise, but the steady assurance that whatever life presents can be met with composure and skill. Confidence cannot be forced by affirmations or temporary excitement. It grows from consistent micro-changes, small, deliberate behaviors that accumulate into self-trust. True transformation does not arrive in sudden bursts, but through continuous refinement that strengthens character from the inside out. Every person holds two versions of themselves, the one that doubts and the one that acts. The space between them is bridged by evidence. Each time a small promise is kept, that bridge grows stronger. Confidence is not built by thinking differently, but by doing consistently. It is the product of discipline more than desire. When actions repeatedly align with intention, the mind learns that it can depend on its own word, and dependence on external validation begins to fade. The quiet pride that comes from following through becomes a foundation unshaken by circumstance. Microchanges are the smallest measurable shifts that point toward growth. They are often invisible to others yet monumental internally. Waking up 5 minutes earlier to breathe, choosing a thoughtful response instead of a reactive one, reading a few pages instead of scrolling. All these gestures whisper to the subconscious, I am capable of change. Each repetition rewires identity slightly, and over time, the collection of such actions forms an entirely new sense of self. The beauty of microchange lies in its sustainability. Large changes often collapse under their own weight, but small, repeated improvements endure because they require less resistance to maintain. Begin with one area of life that feels fragile, something that triggers self-doubt or hesitation. Examine it not as a flaw but as a training field. Confidence grows in the soil of discomfort. When faced with a task that provokes uncertainty, instead of avoiding it, reduce its scale until it feels achievable. If speaking up in meetings causes anxiety, start by contributing one sentence. If fitness feels intimidating, commit to a 2-minute routine. The goal is not grandeur but momentum. Once movement begins, hesitation weakens. The body learns the rhythm of follow-through, and confidence follows movement like a shadow. Microchanges demand consistency more than intensity. The mind resists large disruptions but adapts easily to gradual shifts. Establish a daily pattern so simple that failure becomes difficult. This might mean writing for 5 minutes, walking around the block, or practicing gratitude before bed. These may seem insignificant, but repetition transforms them into evidence of reliability. The purpose is not to impress others, but to train the mind to associate self-discipline with self-respect. Over time, each completed action becomes a small deposit into the bank of confidence, building a reserve that strengthens under pressure. Confidence deepens when attention shifts from outcome to effort. Many people lose motivation because they measure success by immediate results, instead of by the integrity of their actions. Microchanges reframe this perspective. They teach that showing up matters more than visible progress. When effort becomes the measure, failure loses its sting, because each attempt still reinforces persistence. The consistent practice of doing one small thing well each day builds resilience and steadiness, qualities that define true confidence far more than external achievement. The body is a silent participant in confidence. Physical posture, breath, and tone influence internal state. Adjusting these small details throughout the day signals the nervous system to remain calm and alert. Stand upright, shoulders relaxed, gaze steady. Speak slowly and clearly, even when unsure. Breathe through the diaphragm to ground attention. These micro-adjustments tell the mind that stability already exists within. When the body adopts the language of confidence, the mind eventually follows. Confidence also grows through mastery of preparation. Most insecurity comes from uncertainty, and preparation reduces uncertainty. Before challenges, spend a few minutes visualizing calm execution. Break tasks into segments and plan small checkpoints. This micro-level readiness transforms anxiety into focus. Confidence built on preparation is quiet and humble. It does not need to announce itself because it is rooted in competence. Each successful moment of readiness reinforces trust, making future challenges less daunting. One of the most powerful micro-changes is learning to keep small promises made to oneself. Broken promises erode confidence faster than external criticism ever could. Begin each day by identifying one simple commitment, something undeniably achievable, and complete it without negotiation. It might be drinking enough water, sending an overdue message, or tidying a small space. These acts may appear trivial, but they restore integrity. Confidence grows not from grand gestures, but from a steady record of reliability. Another overlooked aspect of building confidence is managing internal dialogue. The voice inside either strengthens resolve or corrodes it. Train it through conscious correction. When self-criticism arises, answer it with evidence rather than emotion. Recall moments when persistence paid off, or when challenges were overcome. This process does not deny difficulty. It contextualizes it. Over time, the internal voice becomes less hostile and more instructional. It shifts from "you can't" to "you can try again differently." That shift is a micro-change of enormous power. Surroundings influence confidence subtly but deeply. A chaotic environment reinforces inner disarray, while order supports focus. Dedicate a few minutes daily to maintaining neatness in personal spaces. This physical control creates psychological clarity. Likewise, spend time with people who model steadiness and humility. Confidence is contagious through observation. Witnessing calm competence in others strengthens belief in what is possible. Seek environments that challenge yet encourage growth, where mistakes are treated as lessons rather than verdicts. Confidence thrives on incremental exposure to challenge. Avoiding discomfort freezes potential, but small doses of risk expand tolerance. Make it a daily practice to do one thing that slightly unsettles you. It could be initiating a conversation, expressing an opinion, or tackling an unfamiliar task. The discomfort will fade faster than expected, replaced by a quiet satisfaction. The mind learns that fear is often an illusion dissolved by action. These daily micro-confrontations with discomfort reshape perception of capability and gradually silence doubt. Self-compassion is the hidden companion of confidence. Without kindness, discipline becomes cruelty. When mistakes occur, respond as a teacher would to a student, with correction and encouragement, not condemnation. Each forgiving response allows effort to continue instead of collapse into shame. Confidence requires patience because growth is cumulative, not instantaneous. The ability to treat oneself with fairness sustains motivation during inevitable setbacks and keeps the process alive long enough for transformation to take root. Reflection turns micro-changes into insight. Spend a few minutes each evening reviewing the day, noting one small victory and one lesson. Writing them down converts fleeting experience into permanent evidence. Over weeks, this log becomes a tangible record of progress, a mirror that reflects growth that might otherwise go unnoticed. Reading old entries reminds the mind how far it has come, counteracting the illusion of stagnation. Confidence, after all, is built upon recognized progress, not imagined perfection. Gratitude supports confidence by shifting focus from deficiency to capability. Each time you acknowledge something you handled well, no matter how simple, you reinforce an identity of competence. Gratitude is not about ignoring flaws, but balancing the internal narrative. The habit of recognizing small strengths creates a resilient foundation that withstands external criticism. It teaches that self-worth is earned through daily conduct, not external praise. Patience is the quiet virtue behind consistent change. Micro-changes work slowly, often without immediate evidence. The impatient mind seeks visible transformation, but the confident one trusts process. Seeds sprout beneath the surface, long before they emerge. Confidence grows the same way, unseen until suddenly obvious. Maintain steady effort even when results seem invisible. Those invisible days are where strength is forged. As micro-changes accumulate, something subtle shifts. Tasks that once required conscious effort become automatic. The internal dialogue softens. Choices align naturally with intention. You begin to sense an underlying steadiness that does not waver with circumstance. That steadiness is confidence, not loud or performative, but grounded and enduring. It does not depend on applause or success because it has been built through countless small victories known only to you. The path to genuine confidence is not a leap of faith, but 1,000 small steps, each proving your ability to adapt, persist, and improve. Every moment of follow-through, every corrected thought, every disciplined act adds another layer to the foundation of trust in yourself. When life presents difficulty, that foundation will hold because it was built through effort, not illusion. The person who practices consistent micro-changes does not need to pretend confidence, they embody it naturally. Their actions speak for them, their presence communicates steadiness, and their life becomes a quiet declaration of mastery earned one deliberate act at a time. Number 5. Release past. Reprogram thoughts. Rise empowered. The past has weight, not because of what happened, but because of how tightly it is held. Every memory, regret, or wound becomes a form of ownership. The more attention it receives, the more it defines the present. Releasing the past is not an act of forgetting. It is the conscious decision to stop allowing what once was to dictate what can be. The mind, when trained to live in repetition, becomes a museum of old moments. Reprogramming thought means turning that museum into a workshop, a place where meaning is shaped, not stored. Rising empowered begins when history becomes information rather than identity. The first step toward release is recognition. Many people carry the past like background noise, unnoticed yet constant. It appears as hesitation before new choices, unexplained sadness, or an inner dialogue that replays mistakes. Bringing these shadows into awareness is essential. Name the memories that still tighten the chest or the faces that trigger resentment. The mind resists this inventory because it believes pain equals loyalty, as if letting go dishonors the lesson. Yet release does not erase experience. It honors it by integrating the wisdom while discarding the weight. The moment you identify what still owns your energy, the process of liberation begins. To release the past, it must first be accepted. Resistance gives pain permanence. What has happened cannot be rewritten, but its influence can be reinterpreted. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means acknowledgement of reality. State it plainly. This occurred, it caused hurt. It shaped me. Then add the next truth. It does not define me now. This shift moves perception from victimhood to authorship. The past remains factual, but its power dissolves because it is no longer used as evidence against the present self. Acceptance is the emotional exhale that precedes transformation. Releasing also requires forgiveness, an often misunderstood form of courage. Forgiveness does not justify harm. It severs attachment to it. Holding anger is like gripping hot coal in an attempt to throw it. Only the holder gets burned. To forgive is to reclaim energy from the grip of resentment and redirect it toward building something new. Begin with self-forgiveness. Acknowledge the choices made from ignorance, fear, or survival. Speak to those versions of yourself as you would to a child learning to walk. The past self did not fail. It practiced being human. Each misstep contained information that led you here. Self-forgiveness restores inner alliance and ends the quiet war against one's own history. The mind records experience not as truth, but as interpretation. Reprogramming thoughts begins with questioning these interpretations. Every belief started as a sentence repeated until it hardened into reality. Examine the recurring thoughts that define self-perception. Phrases like, "I always ruin things," or "I'm not worthy of success." Trace their origin. Often they echo the voices of parents, teachers, or culture. Once recognized as borrowed, they lose authority. Replace them with statements grounded in observation. "I am learning to manage better," or "I deserve stability because I work for it." Language is the code of the mind. Rewriting the code redefines possibility. Visualization strengthens this mental reprogramming. The brain responds to imagery as if it were real. Spend a few quiet moments each morning, picturing yourself acting from empowerment rather than fear. See yourself walking with purpose, speaking clearly, handling setbacks with calm. Feel the physical sensations of confidence and peace. This mental rehearsal trains neural pathways to recognize empowerment as familiar, rather than foreign. Over time, the body and mind synchronize with this new identity. Visualization, done consistently, replaces old emotional reflexes with intentional responses. Daily affirmations serve as small anchor points in the process of reprogramming, but they must be rooted in authenticity. Empty repetition of positive phrases without belief only widens the gap between desire and reality. Instead, choose statements that acknowledge growth in progress. Say, "I am becoming more focused," or "I am learning to trust my strength." The phrase "becoming" communicates movement. It aligns with truth. The subconscious accepts messages that feel realistic. Over time, these words shift internal dialogue from doubt to direction. Release also involves physical action. The body stores what the mind cannot process. Tension in the jaw, heaviness in the chest, tightness in the shoulders. Movement helps release trapped emotion that talking cannot reach. Walk, stretch, breathe deeply, or practice mindful exercise. As the body relaxes, emotional residue surfaces and dissolves. Tears, sighs, and spontaneous memories may arise. These are signs of cleansing, not weakness. The physical act of release completes what the mind begins. Another layer of reprogramming lies in environment. The spaces you inhabit either reinforce the old story or support the new one. Surround yourself with reminders of growth. Objects, scents, sounds that communicate renewal. Remove symbols of stagnation, letters that reopen wounds, clothes linked to painful memories, or places tied to regret. Redesigning the environment tells the subconscious that a new chapter has begun. The mind adapts to context. When surroundings reflect progress, identity follows. To rise empowered, cultivate presence. The present moment is the only place free from the reach of the past. Yet most live elsewhere, trapped in memory or anticipation. Practice grounding through sensory awareness. Notice the texture of your clothes, the rhythm of breathing, the temperature of the air. These details anchor attention in now. Presence interrupts the mental film of old events and reminds you that life continues in real time. The past loses relevance when consciousness belongs fully to the present. Empowerment grows from perspective. Pain without perspective breeds bitterness. Pain understood becomes wisdom. Ask what each difficult experience taught about values, endurance, or empathy. Perhaps betrayal taught discernment, loss revealed appreciation, or failure exposed hidden strength. The meaning assigned to pain transforms it. Empowered individuals do not escape difficulty. They refine it into understanding. Reprogramming thoughts means constantly translating suffering into knowledge. This translation process builds inner stability that external circumstances cannot disturb. Gratitude completes the cycle of release. It converts memory from burden to blessing. Even the harshest experiences often carry hidden gifts. Resilience, awareness, or depth of character. Reflecting on those gifts reframes the narrative from one of damage to one of development. Gratitude does not deny hardship. It recognizes that growth often arrives disguised as difficulty. By thanking the past for its lessons, you symbolically close its door without slamming it. The energy once tied to regret becomes fuel for creation. Rising empowered is not about perfection, but about alignment. It means choosing clarity over nostalgia, progress over repetition. The empowered self no longer seeks validation from external sources, because worth is defined internally. Confidence arises naturally when thoughts, words, and actions align with present truth. Empowerment is quiet, but firm. It does not need to prove itself because it exists beyond comparison. Each day becomes an opportunity to practice freedom by choosing response over reaction, intention over impulse, creation over memory. The process is gradual, and patience is essential. Old patterns resist deletion. They fade through consistent replacement. Celebrate small victories, moments when you caught a negative thought before it spiraled or chose calm instead of blame. These subtle shifts are evidence of reprogramming in action. With time, the past becomes a story referenced for wisdom rather than replayed for pain. Eventually, the inner landscape changes. The mind feels lighter, thoughts clearer, emotions steadier. The voice that once doubted now encourages. The future, once feared, becomes a field of possibility. This state is not an illusion. It is earned. It is the reward of releasing what no longer belongs, rewriting mental patterns with conscious precision, and standing in the strength that emerges when the old identity dissolves. To release the past is to honor life's movement. To reprogram thoughts is to reclaim authorship of perception. To rise empowered is to live as proof that change is possible, that freedom is a skill, and that strength is built not from what has been avoided, but from what has been understood. Each day that choice is made, to release, to reprogram, to rise, the self becomes less defined by history and more defined by purpose. In that shift lies true power, quiet, unshakable, and deeply alive. Number 6. Discipline daily. Discover authentic inner power. Discipline is not punishment. It is alignment between what you say you want and what you consistently do. It is the invisible bridge between potential and power, the quiet structure that transforms good intentions into tangible results. Many people speak of motivation as if it were the key to achievement, but motivation fluctuates with emotion, while discipline remains steady regardless of mood. Discipline is the art of showing up, especially when comfort whispers excuses. It is built not through grand acts, but through repeated small choices that honor your future self. Each day you decide to act with purpose. You strengthen the foundation of authentic power that cannot be borrowed, faked, or rushed. Discipline begins when the mind learns to respect time. Every moment carries weight, and how it is used determines the quality of life. Wasting time on distractions that feed the ego but starve the soul erodes inner stability. To live with discipline is to treat each hour as a sacred opportunity for refinement. It is not about rigid control or deprivation, but conscious direction. Time becomes a mirror reflecting whether one is living deliberately or drifting aimlessly. When discipline governs time, days expand, energy multiplies, and progress accelerates naturally. True discipline is not external. It cannot be imposed by rules or authority. It grows from internal clarity, the deep knowing of what truly matters. People often confuse discipline with restriction, believing it suppresses freedom. In truth, discipline is what creates freedom. The person who disciplines the body, thoughts, and habits is no longer enslaved by impulse, fatigue, or temptation. They move through life with calm control, knowing they can rely on themselves. That self-trust is the purest form of inner power, because it means your emotions no longer dictate your direction. The daily practice of discipline begins with awareness. Notice where inconsistency hides: unfinished projects, broken promises, skipped routines. These are signals of misaligned priorities. When awareness shines on them, excuses lose strength. Begin by setting one non-negotiable task each day that aligns with your larger purpose. Complete it regardless of how you feel. The mind learns through evidence. Each act of completion rewires belief from I can't to I follow through. Over time, discipline becomes identity rather than effort. Structure is essential. Without it, energy scatters. A disciplined life follows rhythm, not chaos. Build a daily structure that supports your goals but allows room for humanity. Morning routines set the tone for focus. Simple acts: waking at a consistent hour, journaling intentions, practicing stillness. Train the mind to begin with clarity. Throughout the day, designate blocks of time for deep work, rest, and reflection. Consistency matters more than perfection. Discipline grows stronger when decisions are simplified. When routine handles the ordinary, willpower remains available for the extraordinary. Discipline thrives on honesty. It demands that you stop negotiating with weakness. The mind excels at rationalizing avoidance. It crafts convincing stories about why something can wait. Each time you agree with that story, you weaken self-respect. The disciplined individual sees these justifications for what they are: distractions disguised as logic. They act despite resistance, not because conditions are ideal, but because integrity requires it. Discipline is loyalty to truth over comfort. It is choosing what nourishes over what numbs. Small disciplines compound into transformation. Drinking water instead of soda, reading a few pages instead of scrolling aimlessly, finishing a task instead of postponing it. These appear insignificant in isolation, but powerful in accumulation. The mind and body adapt to repetition. Every consistent act builds neural pathways that favor strength over surrender. In weeks, what once felt difficult becomes natural. The disciplined life does not rely on bursts of effort, but on steady rhythm. True mastery is born from ordinary actions done with extraordinary consistency. Discipline also means learning to manage emotion. Feelings are temporary visitors. Discipline decides which ones are allowed to stay. Anger, doubt, or laziness lose control when met with awareness. The disciplined person observes emotion without obedience to it. They feel frustration yet still take action. Feel fear yet still move forward. This separation between feeling and doing is where authentic power emerges. Mastering emotion does not mean suppressing it. It means channeling it into motion that aligns with intention. Self-discipline often begins in solitude. The noise of others can drown the inner compass, so time alone becomes training ground. In solitude, patterns of avoidance and distraction become clear. The phone, the gossip, the endless consumption. Each one is a subtle escape from responsibility. Silence reveals how much of daily behavior is reaction rather than creation. When you can sit quietly without needing entertainment or validation, you reclaim authority over attention. That is the foundation of all disciplined living: ownership of focus. To maintain discipline, self-respect must stay higher than desire. When faced with temptation, Ask which choice your future self would thank you for. Discipline is delayed gratitude. It trades the comfort of now for the satisfaction of later. The undisciplined chase ease and remain restless. The disciplined endure discomfort and find peace. It is paradoxical but true. Discipline feels heavy in the moment, yet lightens the spirit over time, while indulgence feels light in the moment, yet burdens the spirit later. Discipline does not mean harshness toward yourself. It means commitment with compassion. When failure occurs, and it will, discipline requires reflection, not punishment. Ask what caused the lapse, adjust the system, and resume. Self-criticism wastes energy that could be redirected toward correction. The disciplined mind learns, adapts, and continues. Resilience is simply discipline that refuses to end. Authentic inner power emerges as the reward for this sustained effort. It is not loud or aggressive. It is calm, steady confidence rooted in self-command. When you know you can rely on yourself, fear loses influence. Power becomes an inner current rather than an external show. It expresses itself in patience, consistency, and emotional stability. The truly powerful are rarely dramatic. They are quietly unshakable because discipline has made them so. Every form of mastery, whether in art, business, or character, springs from disciplined repetition. Talent ignites potential, but discipline sustains progress. Those who wait for inspiration remain idle. Those who act without it create momentum that eventually generates inspiration. Action fuels motivation, not the other way around. The disciplined individual understands this cycle and no longer waits for perfect conditions. They begin where they are, using what they have, and build strength through motion. To deepen discipline, remove unnecessary decisions. The brain tires from constant choice-making, leading to impulsive actions. Simplify diet, wardrobe, workspace, and schedule. Automation supports consistency. Each reduced decision frees attention for what truly matters. Minimalism in behavior sharpens focus. The disciplined mind conserves willpower like a valuable resource and deploys it strategically. Daily reflection strengthens discipline. Spend a few quiet minutes each evening, reviewing actions. Ask, did I honor my priorities? Did I give my best attention to what mattered? Reflection transforms experience into feedback. Without it, days blur into routine without growth. Through reflection, discipline remains conscious rather than mechanical. It ensures effort remains aligned with purpose, preventing progress from becoming hollow productivity. Authentic power is not control over others. It is mastery of self. It is the ability to remain centered amid chaos, to hold calm when provoked, to act with intention when others react impulsively. The disciplined person carries stillness inside, unshaken by external noise. They have learned that control begins inward. This power cannot be taken because it is not given. It is cultivated through countless small choices that reinforce inner authority. Discipline transforms potential into character. It refines the mind, strengthens resolve, and stabilizes the heart. It teaches that freedom is earned through order and that greatness is a consequence of reliability. When you rise each day and act with disciplined purpose, you are not just building habits, you are building a foundation of self-trust, strong enough to carry any dream. Power flows naturally from that trust, because it no longer depends on circumstance. It radiates from within, grounded, calm, and in the end, discipline is love expressed through consistency. It is the daily decision to care enough about your own evolution to show up when it would be easier not to. Each morning you choose discipline. You declare loyalty to your highest potential. Each evening you follow through. You strengthen the bond between who you are and who you aim to become. Through this steady practice, you uncover the truth long hidden beneath distraction and doubt. That real power does not arrive suddenly. It is revealed slowly, earned through action, and sustained through unwavering self-respect. Number 7. Rewire beliefs, realign goals, relaunch identity. Every life is built upon a network of beliefs, most of them formed long before awareness had a choice. They begin as whispers, opinions absorbed from parents, teachers, and culture, then harden into invisible laws that dictate behavior. These internal rules shape perception, determining what is possible, permissible, and predictable. To rewire beliefs is to challenge the architecture of the mind, to dismantle the silent narratives that govern decisions without consent. Real growth does not begin with action, but with perception. For action always follows what the mind accepts as truth. Realigning goals and relaunching identity are natural consequences of that deeper inner reconstruction. Beliefs are the lenses through which reality is interpreted. Two people can live the same event, yet experience it as opposite truths. One sees opportunity, the other sees threat. The difference lies not in circumstance, but in interpretation. When beliefs are outdated or fear-based, they distort perception, turning possibility into paralysis. Many carry inherited beliefs such as success requires struggle, I'm not good enough, or people like me don't succeed. These thoughts act as silent boundaries, preventing forward movement even when the path is clear. The process of rewiring begins by questioning these boundaries instead of accepting them as permanent. To uncover limiting beliefs, observe repeated patterns of frustration. Wherever effort seems to yield the same disappointing result, a belief is often reinforcing the outcome. Write down recurring obstacles, projects abandoned, relationships that repeat, goals that always seem just out of reach. Beneath each pattern is a story the mind keeps telling. Ask, what would I have to believe for this to keep happening? The answer often reveals itself in phrases heard long ago. You're too old. You're not ready. Don't aim too high. Seeing these phrases for what they are, borrowed scripts, loosens their grip. Awareness begins the rewiring process by separating identity from conditioning. Once limiting beliefs are exposed, they must be challenged through evidence. The mind clings to familiarity, even when that familiarity is painful. It believes what it has rehearsed, not necessarily what is true. Begin gathering proof that contradicts the old story. If the belief says I'm not capable of success, recall every instance of perseverance, every challenge overcome. Document them in detail. This creates a mental archive of counter-evidence that gradually overrides the old narrative. The more the mind sees proof of ability, the less it can argue for limitation. Repetition of new evidence reprograms the subconscious as surely as repetition of old fears once did. Rewiring also requires emotional alignment. Beliefs are not merely thoughts, they are feelings stored as facts. A person may intellectually affirm a new belief yet emotionally remain loyal to the old one. To create true change, the new belief must feel real, not just sound positive. Visualization helps bridge this gap. Imagine living as the person who fully embodies the new truth. Feel the confidence, peace, and clarity of that version of yourself. This emotional rehearsal teaches the nervous system to accept empowerment as normal rather than foreign. In time, the new belief no longer feels forced. It becomes natural identity. As beliefs transform, goals must evolve to match them. Many goals fail not because they are unrealistic, but because they are rooted in outdated identity. A person who unconsciously believes they are undeserving will subconsciously sabotage any achievement that contradicts that belief. Realigning goals means ensuring they resonate with the values and truths of the emerging self. Ask, does this goal reflect who I am becoming, or who I used to be? Goals built on fear or comparison lead to emptiness even when reached. Goals built on authenticity expand the spirit while strengthening character. To realign goals, start by defining purpose rather than outcomes. The mind often chases symbols, money, recognition, approval, while the heart seeks meaning. When goals lack emotional purpose, discipline fades quickly. Instead of I want more income, ask what do I want that income to allow? Instead of I want recognition, ask what contribution do I want to make? Purpose converts goals from external pursuit to internal alignment. The clearer the why, the steadier the will. Purpose fuels persistence when difficulty tests resolve. Once goals are clarified, structure them into actionable steps that respect both vision and realism. Break large ambitions into measurable milestones. Each completed step reinforces belief and capability. The process itself becomes evidence of transformation. Realignment also means learning to release goals that no longer resonate. Clinging to outdated ambitions drains energy, meant for the present. Growth demands the courage to outgrow what once felt important. Evolution is not betrayal of the past, but loyalty to truth. When goals are realigned to current identity, progress feels natural rather than forced. The third phase, relaunching identity, occurs organically as beliefs and goals shift. Identity is not static. It is the story told repeatedly about who one is. When that story changes, behavior follows. Relaunching identity means consciously rewriting that narrative. Begin by describing the person you are becoming. Use present tense language that affirms reality rather than hope. I am disciplined. I am confident. I am focused. These statements are declarations, not fantasies. The mind adapts to consistency. The more you embody the traits you describe, the faster they solidify into identity. Relaunching identity also involves refining environment and association. Surroundings either support evolution or reinforce stagnation. Spend time in spaces that reflect the person you aspire to be. Connect with people who challenge complacency and encourage growth. Every conversation, habit, and environment either reinforces the old self or anchors the new one. Conscious curation of these influences accelerates identity shift. Authentic transformation does not happen in isolation from context. It happens through intentional selection of what the self interacts with daily. Self-image is the emotional engine behind identity. To relaunch effectively, one must learn to see themselves with compassion and truth. The new identity cannot thrive in the shadow of self-criticism. Speak to yourself with respect even in moments of failure. Language is programming. The way you address yourself becomes the way you live. Replace phrases of defeat with questions of curiosity. What can I learn instead of why do I always fail? Each shift in language refines the internal atmosphere. The new identity grows strongest in an environment of encouragement and responsibility combined. As beliefs are rewired and goals realigned, friction arises. The old identity resists extinction because familiarity feels safe. Doubt surfaces, disguised as logic. Maybe I'm overreaching. Maybe I should slow down. Recognize these thoughts as echoes of the past, attempting to regain control. Do not fight them, observe them. The act of observation weakens their influence. Continue acting in alignment with the new narrative even while the old one protests. Behavior often leads belief. Consistent action solidifies the change. Patience is vital during identity transition. The process is not linear. Some days the new mindset feels natural. Other days the old one returns forcefully. This oscillation is normal. The mind is adjusting to new patterns of thought. Much like muscles adjusting to new training, celebrate progress rather than perfection. Each moment of awareness, each conscious choice, and each act of courage rewires a little deeper. The self you are building emerges not in a single moment of insight, but through steady repetition of truth. Eventually, the balance shifts. The new beliefs feel more real than the old ones. Goals align effortlessly with purpose. The identity that once felt like a vision becomes second nature. You begin to act from authenticity rather than effort. Decision-making simplifies because your internal compass is calibrated. You no longer chase validation or compare your journey to others because the direction is clear. The noise of insecurity fades into the background, replaced by calm conviction. Rewiring beliefs, realigning goals, and relaunching identity form a continuous cycle of growth. Every new stage of life demands another layer of refinement. As awareness deepens, so does the capacity for authenticity. The process never ends because life itself is movement. To remain awake within that movement is mastery. Each belief rewritten is a liberation, each goal realigned is a declaration, and each identity relaunched is a rebirth. Through this cycle, you become the architect of your evolution, guided not by fear or conditioning, but by conscious choice and unwavering truth. Number 8. Small wins compound into lasting change. Lasting transformation is not born from a single monumental effort, but from the quiet accumulation of small victories, repeated with purpose. The greatest mistake people make when seeking change is believing that only dramatic gestures lead to progress. They look for overnight success, instant breakthroughs, and powerful bursts of motivation. Yet life rewards the steady, not the sudden. Real growth is the outcome of persistent, almost invisible actions that build momentum over time. Small wins may appear insignificant in isolation, but together they create irreversible momentum that reshapes both mindset and destiny. Each small win is a signal to the mind: a message that effort produces results. The human brain thrives on evidence. When progress is visible, no matter how minor, it strengthens belief in one's capacity to improve. A single completed task, a morning walk, an organized desk. These may not look like transformation, but they are proof of self-command. Each one reinforces identity as someone capable of action. When accumulated, these micro-achievements form a psychological foundation upon which confidence stands. Confidence is not built from perfection, but from consistent proof that you can keep promises to yourself. The compounding power of small wins mirrors the principle of interest in finance. Tiny deposits of effort, repeated daily, multiply in value. Missing a day or making an error does not ruin the process, because consistency outweighs intensity. The person who improves by 1% each day will be unrecognizable after a year, not because of a single heroic act, but because of continual refinement. Change compounds quietly. By the time the results become visible, the inner transformation has already taken root. To harness this principle, redefine what success means. Most people fail, not from lack of effort, but from unrealistic expectations. They aim for drastic overhauls, rigorous diets, radical routines, complete reinvention, then burn out when results don't appear instantly. Real success lies in creating sustainable patterns that can survive fatigue, distraction, and doubt. Start small enough that failure becomes almost impossible. A 5-minute meditation, 1 paragraph of writing, 10 push-ups. These are not trivial acts but anchors of discipline. Once the pattern of action is established, the duration or difficulty can increase naturally. The habit of beginning is far more powerful than any single accomplishment. The key to making small wins compound is awareness. Most people achieve progress without noticing it. And because they overlook it, they lose motivation. Recording progress transforms invisible effort into tangible evidence. Journaling, tracking habits, or reflecting nightly allows the mind to witness growth. Each entry becomes a brick in the structure of belief. The moment you see how far you've come, momentum strengthens. Recognition fuels repetition. Repetition builds transformation. Awareness turns ordinary effort into a source of inspiration rather than exhaustion. Momentum grows strongest when the process becomes emotionally rewarding. Every small win should feel meaningful, not mechanical. Connect each task to a larger purpose. A single glass of water is not just hydration, it's self-respect. A tidy space is not just order, it's mental clarity. Framing small actions as reflections of identity deepens motivation. When each act becomes a declaration of who you are becoming, the smallest motion gains significance. Progress stops feeling like a chore and starts feeling like alignment. To maintain steady progress, remove the pressure of perfection. Small wins compound only when consistency survives imperfection. Skipped days or occasional lapses are not signs of failure but reminders of humanity. The disciplined mind acknowledges errors without surrendering to guilt. Restarting immediately prevents the emotional drift that destroys momentum. The difference between those who succeed and those who quit is rarely ability. It is the speed of recovery after a lapse. Perfection seeks control. Growth seeks continuity. Another powerful aspect of small wins lies in their ability to rewire self-perception. Every completed action modifies identity slightly. The person who writes a page today begins to see themselves as a writer. The person who wakes early starts to view themselves as disciplined. Identity shifts quietly, one repetition at a time. This is the hidden engine of lasting change. Belief evolving through behavior. You don't need to wait until you feel like a new person to act like one. You act first, repeatedly, until feeling follows doing. Each small win whispers, "This is who I am now." The environment you build plays an essential role in supporting these micro-victories. Set up surroundings that reduce friction between intention and action. If you want to exercise, prepare your clothes the night before. If you want to read, keep a book in plain sight. The fewer decisions required to start, the more likely consistency will prevail. Environment cues behavior. Design your space to make progress effortless. This quiet preparation transforms willpower into habit, turning change from struggle into rhythm. Discipline and patience sustain the compounding process. There will be days when results seem invisible, when the mind whispers that effort isn't working. These are the most critical moments. Growth is often happening beneath awareness, reshaping thought patterns and emotional resilience long before external success appears. The bamboo plant spends years growing roots before it breaks the surface. Likewise, your small efforts are establishing unseen strength. Patience allows compounding to complete its work. When results arrive, they appear sudden to outsiders, but to you, they are the inevitable harvest of persistence. To accelerate progress, stack habits strategically, pair a new behavior with one that already exists. Drink water immediately after brushing your teeth. Write gratitude notes after morning coffee. Stretch before sleep. This technique, known as habit chaining, uses existing patterns to anchor new ones. Over time, clusters of positive actions form a daily ritual of progress. Each habit supports the others, reducing reliance on willpower. What begins as deliberate effort transforms into effortless momentum. The emotional benefit of small wins is equally transformative. Each victory, no matter how small, releases a sense of accomplishment that builds psychological momentum. This feeling of progress reduces anxiety, increases optimism, and creates a sense of agency. When life feels overwhelming, small wins restore control. You may not change everything overnight, but you can always change something today. That awareness replaces helplessness with empowerment, and empowerment is the foundation of lasting confidence. Consistency in small actions also cultivates trust with oneself. Many lose faith in their abilities because they have broken too many promises to themselves. Every incomplete goal erodes credibility. By focusing on small, achievable commitments, you rebuild that trust. When you do what you said you would, even in minor ways, self-respect returns. From that respect grows stability, and from stability grows ambition. The person who trusts themselves cannot be easily swayed by doubt or distraction. The philosophy of small wins extends beyond personal growth. It transforms relationships, careers, and mindset. In communication, one kind word a day can rebuild trust faster than grand apologies. In skill development, 15 minutes of focused practice daily outperforms hours of sporadic effort. In leadership, consistent integrity earns loyalty far more than occasional brilliance. Small wins redefine excellence as reliability, not spectacle. They prove that greatness is not a moment, but a pattern. Over time, the compounding effect of these actions changes the way you perceive life itself. You stop chasing extremes and begin respecting process. You understand that progress is less about massive change and more about sustainable alignment. You no longer rush results because you know that small wins faithfully maintained cannot fail to create transformation. The anxiety of how long will it take fades, replaced by the certainty that time is now your ally. You no longer fight the clock, you cooperate with it. Eventually, small wins become identity. The person who once struggled to begin now cannot imagine a day without progress. Routine transforms into ritual. Effort becomes joy. The cycle of compounding takes over. And discipline turns effortless because success has become familiar. This is the quiet power of incremental mastery. It creates a self that thrives on consistency and no longer seeks escape in distraction. Lasting change, then, is not about explosive moments of willpower, but about small acts of alignment performed faithfully. Each one is a seed. Each repetition is water. Each day is sunlight. The garden of your potential grows not through haste, but through steady tending. When you understand this truth deeply, impatience dissolves and persistence strengthens. The smallest win today becomes the root of greatness tomorrow. Over months and years, those roots interlock, forming the unshakable foundation of a life transformed from the inside out. Number 9. Reignite motivation. Reframe failure. Rebuild resilience. Motivation is not a spark that randomly appears. It is a force that must be reignited daily through clarity, purpose, and deliberate thought. Many people wait for inspiration, as if it were a gift that arrives on perfect mornings. Yet the truth is that motivation grows from disciplined action, not the other way around. The act of moving forward, even in small ways, creates its own fire. When you begin to act, Even without full enthusiasm, the energy you seek starts to follow. Momentum replaces hesitation, and motion transforms doubt into strength. This is the foundation of reigniting motivation. It begins not in emotion, but in decision. There comes a point in every person's journey when the initial excitement fades and the work feels heavy. It is in those moments that motivation must shift from external excitement to internal conviction. The goal is no longer to feel inspired, but to stay committed. To reignite motivation, one must reconnect with the why behind the effort. Purpose breathes life into discipline. When you remember what you stand for, what you are building, and why it matters, even the most difficult tasks regain meaning. Clarity cuts through fatigue. Purpose turns routine into ritual, and ritual creates renewal. One of the most powerful ways to reignite motivation is to break your goals down into achievable steps that allow for daily progress. The human spirit thrives on visible growth. When progress feels invisible, energy fades. When progress is measurable, enthusiasm returns. Each completed step gives you evidence that your efforts matter. It is not about grand leaps, but about steady proof that movement is happening. Keep your goals visible. Write them where you can see them every day. Review them, refine them, and remind yourself that progress is not a straight line, but a living process. To sustain motivation, focus on progress rather than perfection. Many people lose energy because they chase flawless execution, forgetting that perfection is an illusion. The pursuit of excellence requires room for imperfection. When you give yourself permission to be a work in progress, you remove the weight of unrealistic standards. Progress honors the process. Perfection punishes it. Motivation thrives when effort is appreciated, not when it's endlessly judged. Each imperfect attempt is proof of courage, and courage is the true foundation of achievement. When motivation fades completely, it is often because failure has distorted perspective. Failure, when misinterpreted, becomes poison to the mind. It convinces people that they are incapable, that their efforts were wasted, that their worth is defined by outcomes. But failure is not a verdict. It is feedback. It is an instructor that teaches through contrast, revealing what doesn't work so that what does can emerge. To reframe failure, you must detach emotion from event. Instead of saying "I failed," replace it with "I learned something vital." This shift transforms shame into strategy. It reclaims power from disappointment. Every setback contains a message, a lesson waiting for interpretation. The pain you feel after a failure is not punishment. It is direction. It is a signal that something within needs adjustment, whether it's your method, mindset, or focus. The wise do not fear failure, because they see it as the cost of mastery. Each mistake adds texture to understanding. Failure does not destroy those who analyze it. It strengthens them. What weakens a person is not failure itself, but the belief that failure defines them. When you treat failure as information rather than identity, you begin to rise with renewed strength. To rebuild resilience after hardship, one must embrace adversity as a natural part of growth. Life does not spare anyone from challenge, but it rewards those who face difficulty with composure. Resilience is not the absence of struggle. It is the art of recovery. It is the ability to be broken without being destroyed, to bend without losing form. Every time you rise after falling, your inner framework grows stronger. Each test you endure expands your tolerance for discomfort and your faith in your ability to overcome. Resilience is forged through repetition, not avoidance. It is built in the moments when you choose to try again despite pain. To rebuild your inner strength, begin by shifting focus from control to adaptation. You cannot command every outcome, but you can command your response. The Stoics understood that peace lies not in changing the world, but in mastering perception. When circumstances feel chaotic, the mind must become the anchor. Ask yourself what is within your influence and what is not. Redirect your effort toward what you can act upon, your thoughts, your habits, your decisions, and release what lies beyond. Control is limited, but influence is infinite when directed inward. Emotional resilience grows when you learn to face pain without collapsing into it. Instead of avoiding discomfort, observe it. Name it. Understand it. Pain often diminishes the moment it is faced directly. The mind tends to exaggerate what it resists. When you allow yourself to experience difficulty fully, without judgment or denial, you reclaim control. Acceptance is not surrender. It is the beginning of mastery. You cannot move beyond what you refuse to face. By acknowledging pain with clarity and patience, you reduce its hold over you. A resilient person also cultivates perspective. In moments of defeat, the mind often zooms in on what went wrong, losing sight of the bigger picture. Perspective restores balance. Look beyond the present struggle to the broader story of your life. See this moment not as an ending, but as a chapter within a longer journey. Time has a way of revealing the necessity of struggle. What feels like loss today often becomes wisdom tomorrow. When you expand your view, pain becomes proportionate, and endurance becomes possible. Rebuilding resilience also requires nurturing the body and mind through consistent self-care. Physical strength reinforces mental endurance. Rest, nutrition, and movement are not luxuries. They are the foundation upon which discipline stands. Fatigue magnifies doubt. Clarity grows in a well-rested mind. Protect your energy as you would protect your most valuable possession. It fuels every pursuit. A disciplined body supports a resilient spirit. When the body is cared for, the mind functions with precision, and motivation finds steady ground. Another essential element of resilience is the ability to detach self-worth from performance. Achievements fluctuate, character remains. When identity depends solely on success, every setback feels catastrophic. But when identity is grounded in values, integrity, effort, compassion, no loss can destroy you. You become anchored in principles rather than outcomes. This kind of strength cannot be taken away because it comes from within. Even in moments of failure, you remain whole. The mind that stands on values does not crumble under disappointment. Reigniting motivation and rebuilding resilience also involves surrounding yourself with the right influences. Environment shapes emotion. People who uplift you, who speak truth rather than flattery, who remind you of your strength when you forget it. These are invaluable. Isolation breeds distortion, but shared strength restores clarity. Seek those who live with conviction and learn from their example. Borrow belief when yours feels weak. Resilience multiplies in connection. Motivation sustained in solitude is possible, but it grows stronger in community. As motivation returns and resilience strengthens, you begin to see failure differently, not as a threat, but as a teacher that keeps you sharp and humble. Every person who has achieved greatness has walked through seasons of defeats. They advanced because they refused to allow those seasons to define their story. Failure, in their eyes, was a doorway to refinement. It stripped away illusions and forced clarity. The most resilient individuals view hardship as the price of wisdom, and wisdom as the path to peace. The art of transformation lies in turning pain into progress. When motivation falters, remember that discipline sustains you until inspiration returns. When failure strikes, analyze rather than agonize. When exhaustion sets in, rest but never retreat. A combination of consistent effort, reframed perspective, and emotional endurance forms the architecture of true strength. Motivation is the spark, resilience is the engine. One ignites the journey, the other sustains it. Ultimately, to reignite motivation, reframe failure, and rebuild resilience is to reclaim control over your internal world. It is to realize that life's trials are not personal attacks, but opportunities for expansion. You become unshakable not because life stops testing you, but because your spirit stops breaking under pressure. When that shift happens, setbacks lose their sting. You no longer fear the fall, because you trust your ability to rise. Each trial becomes another step toward mastery. Each disappointment becomes another layer of depth. And as you continue, your confidence no longer depends on circumstances. It flows from the unbreakable foundation you have built with it. Number 10. Embrace growth. Evolve habits. Embody success. Growth is not an event, but a continual unfolding of awareness, discipline, and renewal. It does not announce itself with fanfare. It begins quietly in the decisions you make when no one is watching. To embrace growth means to accept that who you are today is not the final version of yourself. It means living with the humility to evolve, to outgrow patterns that once felt comfortable, and to let go of identities that no longer serve your purpose. Growth requires courage because it demands the death of familiarity. It asks you to trade comfort for clarity, routine for refinement, and certainty for expansion. Those who embrace growth understand that stagnation is a choice, and that every day presents a new opportunity to refine thought, strengthen character, and deepen understanding. Evolution begins in awareness. The moment you start observing your thoughts and behaviors without excuse or denial, transformation begins. Awareness is the mirror through which you see your patterns clearly. The habits that drain energy, the beliefs that limit potential, the distractions that steal purpose. Growth cannot happen in ignorance. It starts when you confront reality without resistance. The discipline of honest reflection reveals where alignment is missing. Awareness alone, however, is not enough. It must be paired with deliberate action. Knowing what must change means nothing if you do not commit to the process of changing it. To evolve habits is to restructure your life at the smallest level. Habits are not simply actions, they are expressions of identity. Every repeated behavior tells the mind who you are. When you change a habit, you rewrite your self-image. The person who commits to consistency becomes consistent. The one who practices gratitude becomes content. Habits carve the channels through which energy flows. If those channels lead toward distraction or indulgence, potential leaks away. But if they are directed toward purpose, every moment becomes an act of progress. The quality of your habits defines the quality of your life. Evolving habits begins with replacing friction with flow. Instead of forcing massive changes, focus on designing routines that align naturally with who you want to become. Identify the triggers that lead to unproductive behaviors and replace them with cues that promote growth. If stress drives you toward avoidance, create rituals of calm. If boredom leads to waste, cultivate curiosity. The process of habit evolution is not about discipline alone. It's about design. The more your environment supports your intentions, the easier growth becomes. To evolve means to continuously refine how you think, feel, and act. Growth is not linear. It is rhythmic, filled with phases of acceleration and stillness. Some seasons will demand expansion, while others will require reflection. Both are necessary. The mind that evolves learns to move with this rhythm rather than fight against it. You must understand that evolution is not failure to maintain a straight path. It is the wisdom to adapt when change demands it. Each pause holds purpose. Each obstacle hides instruction. By learning from both momentum and stillness, you develop the balance that allows progress to endure. True growth requires shedding the false layers of identity built from comparison. Too often, people chase versions of success that belong to others, standards defined by social approval rather than inner truth. This imitation breeds emptiness because it disconnects you from authenticity. To embrace growth is to return to your own path. It means asking, what does success mean to me? And daring to live by that definition. You evolve not by copying others, but by discovering what aligns with your principles and nurturing it fully. The pursuit of external validation is a trap that keeps you repeating cycles of dissatisfaction. Real progress comes from alignment between action and integrity. Growth also demands patience with yourself. The desire to transform quickly often leads to frustration. Deep change unfolds gradually, often invisibly. It takes time for new habits to take root, and for old patterns to lose their hold. The same way a seed breaks the soil before becoming a tree, your progress will begin beneath the surface. Quiet, slow, but powerful. Trust the unseen work. Growth that lasts is never rushed. It requires steady commitment to the process, rather than obsession with the outcome. Every day that you act with intention, even when results seem distant, you are building invisible strength that will soon reveal itself. As you evolve, humility becomes your greatest companion. Growth without humility turns into arrogance. Evolution without empathy becomes isolation. The more you improve, the more you must remember that everyone is on their own journey of becoming. Respect the pace of others while maintaining your own. Humility keeps the heart open to learning, and learning sustains transformation. When you believe there is nothing left to learn, progress stops. True mastery is not knowing everything. It is the willingness to keep growing endlessly. To embody success means to live the principles you value rather than merely chase results. Success is not an achievement to collect. It is a state of alignment between who you are and what you do. You embody success when your actions consistently express discipline, gratitude, and authenticity. When your behavior reflects your highest values, fulfillment follows naturally. The external rewards, wealth, recognition, opportunity are secondary echoes of internal harmony. A person who embodies success does not need to announce it. Their presence communicates strength, clarity, and purpose without words. Success in its purest form is peace of mind earned through discipline and integrity. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are living in alignment with your principles. To embody success, focus not on appearances but on essence. Ask yourself daily, are my actions reflecting my values? Are my words aligned with truth? Am I using my time wisely and with purpose? The answers to these questions define success more accurately than any material measure ever could. Growth requires resilience, because evolution exposes discomfort. Every time you change, you must leave something behind, an old habit, an outdated belief, a familiar environment. That departure can feel like loss, but it is actually liberation. The pain of growth is the price of authenticity. When you accept that discomfort is a natural part of becoming, resistance fades. You stop fearing the unknown and start trusting your capacity to adapt. The person who welcomes change cannot be broken by it. As your habits evolve, your identity stabilizes. You begin to act not from impulse, but from intention. Daily discipline becomes natural, and choices become simpler because they align with your purpose. The noise of doubt quiets when behavior reflects belief. Growth turns from something you chase to something you embody. You stop seeking transformation externally and start radiating it from within. That is the essence of evolution, effort that becomes instinct, striving that turns into being. To continue embodying success, you must maintain curiosity. Growth ends where curiosity dies. The mind must remain open to new ideas, perspectives, and experiences. Curiosity prevents complacency and keeps the spirit alive. The greatest thinkers, artists, and leaders are not defined by perfection, but by their relentless willingness to keep learning. Every experience, whether joyous or painful, becomes an opportunity for wisdom. When curiosity replaces judgment, every challenge becomes an invitation to expand. The path of evolution is not about becoming someone entirely new, but about uncovering who you were meant to be before the noise of fear and expectation clouded your vision. Growth is a return to authenticity. Each new habit, each improved thought, each refined choice brings you closer to that center. The journey is not about gaining more, but shedding what no longer serves. In that shedding, lightness emerges, a freedom that allows success to flow naturally, without the weight of pretense. To embrace growth fully, you must commit to renewal. Renewal means continuously assessing, adjusting, and elevating. It means not settling for comfort zones, but pushing gently against their edges. Comfort feels safe, but it rarely leads to greatness. Growth lives just beyond what feels familiar. Each day, ask yourself, where can I improve slightly? What fear can I face today? What small act can I do better? The answer to those questions, repeated consistently, becomes the blueprint for continual evolution. The final stage of growth is gratitude. Gratitude transforms progress into fulfillment. Without it, even achievement feels hollow. Gratitude reminds you that every step, every lesson, every setback contributed to your transformation. It connects you to the present moment, the only place where life truly happens. Gratitude turns ambition from restless striving into purposeful living. It completes the cycle of growth by grounding success in appreciation rather than possession. To embrace growth, evolve habits, and embody success is to live consciously, courageously, and consistently. It is to wake each morning, aware that you are both the sculptor and the sculpture, shaping yourself through every choice you make. Growth is infinite, and so is your capacity to change. When you stop waiting for transformation to happen and start living as the person you aspire to be, evolution becomes effortless. You become a living expression of progress itself, calm in the process, confident in your purpose, and content in knowing that success is not something to reach, but something you already carry within.